Dad, I just thought of something, and I'm going to challenge you real fast because you just made a claim that I know is false. You said you've never had you said you've never had an experience where the book is better than the movie. And Brandon, for your information, my dad is a Dr. Seuss purist. That's what I call it. Where
well, then I have to take it back myself because I would say Dr. Seuss books are definitely better than those movies.
Yep. You got me. The movies are terrible.
If you would like to support the efforts and research we are doing here on this podcast, make a donation using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes or go to buymeacoffee.com/Shane's Brain. Thank you. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I'm your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and today we're talking with the one and only Brandon Lincoln. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we also have here my son and co-host, Cole Williams. Welcome to the show, Cole.
Hey, guys.
All right, Brandon, why don't you just tell us what you do for a living?
So up until recently, I build koi ponds and water features. I still kind of do that. As you can see, I'm in a cast right now. Just the first of 2 surgeries that I have to get done. So it kind of stopped my work there. I did that during the summer, and in the wintertime, I built fire trucks. And that actually destroyed my hands. I have really bad arthritis. So now I'm just trying to refigure things out and figure my life out to work and not use my hands so much anyway. But
so building fire trucks and building koi ponds.
Yeah.
That is very unique. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's just most recently. I've done a lot of things, but we'll just go with that for now.
Sounds kind of like a jack of all trades kind of situation.
Yeah, there's not much I haven't done.
Okay. What about your hobbies and stuff you like to do for fun?
I like to do a lot of art, no specific medium. Again, used to carve a lot with chainsaws and stuff. And now I can't do that. I don't know if I'll be able to go back to that. I still have to get my right hand surgery done. And so I've been working with like airbrushes now. I play with a lot of AI art. I'm not so much as into that as I am other things, but just trying to find mediums that are less damaging to my hands.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple graph. If you would like to view the Apple graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia.
All right, the first thing I want you to do is imagine a red apple in your mind.
I can't imagine it in my head. It looks like number 1 right away.
Yeah.
Like I've spent hours trying to do these things. In fact, I still practice trying to bring images in with no progress yet, but I'm still hopeful.
All right, and that is okay. So we know that you are number 1. You have aphantasia, or you are a fantastic.
I like that one.
How and when did you discover that you have aphantasia? If you want to share a little bit about that story.
It was actually just a couple years ago. I had no idea. Like I spent my whole life just kind of going with the flow. Like, okay, and I didn't realize that, I thought people that could see stuff in their head maybe had photographic memory or something like that, there was something particular about them. Like I wasn't the rare one,
Right.
which I still wonder if people with aphantasia are as rare as they say, because I didn't figure out until I'm 42. So 2 years ago, my girlfriend's daughter has aphantasia, and she was familiar with it. And just in talking to me, she started asking me questions, and she's like, "Oh, so you have aphantasia?" And I'm like, what is that?" And she's like, "You can't picture stuff in your head." And I'm like, "Well, not everybody can do that, right? That's just like a weird thing some people do." And she's like, "No, like most people do." And it just kind of blew my mind.
You go through your life thinking everybody thinks the way you do. And then once you find out that that's the farthest from the truth, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it tears down your whole known reality pretty much.
So how do you think that has affected your life, both before you knew and after you learned about it?
I mean, at first it was pretty kind of emotional, like to think about all the things. And then I started thinking about how, well, let's figure out how my brain works, and maybe it'll help me function better as a person and really understand a lot of things in life that I maybe just scooted past or threw away or whatever, and it just really gave me a better perspective on life and made a lot of things make more sense.
Yeah, that's great. And that's kind of our aim of this podcast too. We call it Discovering Your Mind, because our goal is to help people learn more about the way they think, all the beautiful and unique parts of your brain that are the strengths and weaknesses that you have that'll help you navigate life. And that's our goal, is to help people discover those things about their own minds. And we're all just going to learn together. We usually learn new things about aphantasia. A lot of the people we interview learn new things about themselves they've never thought of before. We're just going to have fun.
Nice. I love it.
So the next thing we'd like you to do is think of a chicken in your mind. Describe in as much detail as you can what's happening in your mind when you think of a chicken.
To me, even thinking is like a strange concept since I've, started exploring my mind even more, because it's like my thoughts, I don't really think them. They're there. You say, think of a chicken, there's a chicken. It's not in my head. I just think, there's a thought of this chicken. Now we got to add in particulars, from there to build on what it is, I guess.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it does.
Not to me, but I'm sure it does to him.
Yeah, like I don't think thoughts. They're just there, and like I can even like whole concepts at once just pop into my head, and then trying to just get that out and maybe translate it to somebody is found to be pretty difficult sometimes. Depending, like a chicken's an easy one, Oh, there's a chicken. It's Rhode Island red on a farm. It's just different scenarios that I could present the chicken in,
Okay. How did you decide what type of chicken it was?
That was just the first one on the list that I could recall, I guess, of types of chickens.
So in general, when you're thinking about something like that, like there, I didn't give you any specifics. I just said a chicken, but it sounds like your mind wanted some specifics. So it went through and picked some specifics. Is that generally how your mind works?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Tries to have something as a basis to build on if it's not provided.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting, because my brain doesn't really do that. You say chicken, and I don't think of any specifics. I just have a very vague thought of a chicken without anything specific happening.
Well, see, that is how my brain is at first, and then it adds those other things in. Like it wants to keep going. Like, what else is here? And if there isn't provided, it'll add it, I guess.
Okay. What about movement? Was there any movement in the thought? Like, was the chicken running around, or?
No, it would just be just like a stamp almost of a chicken, like no movement, nothing particular.
So can you think of a chicken with movement if you want to? If you think about a chicken running around, can you do that?
Yeah, my thoughts would go to like when I raised chickens, maybe a memory of trying to collect them all and put them in a new hen house.
Okay. So I know this is difficult to explain, but for those wondering, like if you can't see that memory, then how do you experience it?
I don't know. It's like I said, like the thoughts are just there. I can't say there's how it is. It's like just being able to know something or feel something It makes no sense to me, to be honest. I'm still trying to figure that out. But it's like I said, like whole concepts, memories, experiences, they're just there. And it'll take me a lot of time to sometimes to figure out like timelines in it. And, you know, and I just have to, I feel like all the memories and thoughts are always there. It's just about how I recall them.
Have you heard the analogy of the computer is on, but the monitor is off? Have you heard that analogy?
Yes, that is a great analogy.
Does that resonate with you?
Very much so.
Yeah, me too. Is there any difference in the thought depending on if your eyes are closed or your eyes are open?
No, I guess maybe if they're closed, I can concentrate a little bit better on trying to figure out like details of something, or, you know, because since I can't just see it and explain it, I have to kind of, it's almost like feeling around in the dark and like, oh, this is that. But if my eyes are open or closed, it doesn't really make much difference. Just better concentration.
What about sound? If the chicken made a sound, could you hear it in your mind?
No sound, no, even like what I'm not sure if I would call it my inner dialogue because I can't hear it, but even that, I don't hear anything like, and I noticed that after talking with my girlfriend, and she told me to just scream as loud as I can in my head, you know, and I try to, you know, close the eyes and just trying, and it was just like trying to visualize something, you know, and no volume. I feel like it's just me sitting in a dark cave.
We've been playing around a lot with words lately and the different words we use to describe things and how they can maybe change our perception of what's going on. So I've got 4 phrases here: inner voice, inner monologue, inner dialogue, and self-talk. To you, are all 4 of those phrases interchangeable, or do they kind of mean the same thing to you?
I would say there is some crossover. Inner voice, I feel like that would be something you would hear. Self-talk, that's one I could probably more relate to because, you know, it's like just talking about the thoughts that come into my head, you know, in my head. It's not any form of dialogue, you know, it's just a thought there.
So if you have one, how would you say your inner voice or inner monologue manifests?
I feel like I'm scrolling through a computer screen that's not on, you know, but all the information's already there because I don't really hear them. They're just there.
Do you play out conversations in your mind?
Yeah, like different scenarios and outcomes.
Okay, so how does that work?
That's what I was getting at. It doesn't really play out though, as in like a back and forth conversation. It's, oh, this is the way it could either play out this way or this way, you know, and it would spark on maybe how the conversation started, your mood when I started talking to you, you know, like if you're in a bad mood, it's probably going to end up being this. And the whole dialogue doesn't really play out, I guess. It's just there because to me, the specifics, even after the conversation, I don't know if I'll necessarily remember all of the details like that.
Okay. So it sounds like you are able to pretty well map out the conversation. It just doesn't play out as like a full conversation would. Yeah,
map would be a better term, I would say.
Yeah. Because when I talk about playing out a conversation, it's like living the entire conversation. So that's an interesting clarification. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, it would take me a while to play out a conversation. I would have to focus and really put thought into the dialogue. And then by the time I got to the end, I wouldn't even remember the first part of it.
So we talked a little bit about this somewhat inner monologue that you have. Do you think that's always attached to your thoughts?
I think they're one and the same.
Okay.
Like it's the thoughts and my inner monologue are all one, you know.
Okay, what about this? Would you say your thoughts are in words or concepts or both?
I would say more concepts.
Okay.
And then I'll break those concepts down into words if needed.
I'll be the first to say that makes no sense to me, but okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times I have trouble even sharing what I have and how I feel or those thoughts or concepts because it's hard to break them down, and that especially when it makes perfect in my head, you know. So I'm the kind of guy I'll be like, just let me do it. You'll see. You'll figure it out. It'll make sense when I'm done. And it didn't make sense, but I got it done, you know, either way.
What does the phrase, I have a song stuck in my head, mean to you?
If I had a song stuck in my head, it would just be like the lyrics just going over and over, but not repeat, almost like I would be saying them, consciously repeating them over and over, like a OCD type thing to me.
So other than the lyrics, is there any other part of the song in your head? Even though you can't hear it, can you kind of think about what the instruments sound like or what the singer sounds like?
Not without it playing or anything like that, no.
So if a song's stuck in your head, it's really just the lyrics on loop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, no audio or nothing like that, just me thinking about the lyrics. And I can stop myself and be like, okay, just stop thinking about that, let's think about something else. And it's really easy. So it doesn't really get stuck in my head. I get stuck on it, I guess, and then I just got to get myself off of it.
Really?
Okay.
You can just say stop to it and it will stop?
Yeah, sometimes it'll come back and I'll start repeating it again, but it's pretty much that easy. I can just shut something off like that in my head. Like in yoga, they're like, clear your mind or, meditating. Well, that's the easy part, the next step is the hard part for me.
Read the book that inspired this podcast, Aphantasia and Beyond, available on shanesbraindomain.com and Amazon. We got 4 more phrases for you. Again, just tell us what they mean to you and if they mean similar things to you. We have picture it, imagine it, visualize it, and think of it. What do those words mean to you? Like if somebody tells you to picture something or visualize something or imagine something or think of something, does anything different happen in your mind when those different
Nothing different happens, because now that I understand how my mind works and so I already know, and I don't bring it up to most people because it ends up in a conversation longer than we're going to have. But so picture it and visualize it. I know I really can't do that, and a lot of times I'll say, no, I can't, and most people, if you just say you can't picture it, they just figure that you can't find that picture in your head. And they'll leave it alone, But I'm just like, no, I can't picture that. A lot of my friends know that I can't. But imagine, I feel like that's something I could do and create concepts in my head,
So before you knew about aphantasia, did you think that those words like visualize it or picture it were just like figures of speech?
Absolutely, yeah. Or just maybe it's people that had special abilities in their brain that,
right.
Were rare.
Right. That's interesting you say that because I was the same way. As a kid, I heard the term photographic memory, and that's what I thought it was too, was the super rare ability to picture something.
Yeah, everything applied to photographic memory to me, oh, you must have a photographic memory.
Right. That's why we like to talk about the different words and explore them a little bit because they just mean something different to everybody. Imagine is one of those words too, right? Like I always felt like I had a great imagination until I found out what other people meant by that word. When they're talking about imagination, they're talking about a very visual space. And so in that way, I don't have an imagination, but in my way, I certainly do.
Yeah. And that's one thing that gets me about the word imagine, it's image. So,
right.
But I feel like they also talk about imagine a song, and that's not necessarily an image, so which I don't feel I can do that either, but I can imagine a concept.
Okay. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
It's dark and just kind of, I don't know, there might be colors going through, floating around, but they're very, very faint. I guess you ever watch YouTube videos when you're sleeping and it goes to the black screen? You know what I'm talking about there? Yeah, it looks just kind of like a black TV screen or computer monitor with power to it, but nothing on the screen. It's all black.
Okay. That's a cool description. Can you think of nothing if you want to?
Oh, yeah. That's an easy one.
All right. So that concept is hard for people who can visualize to understand a lot of times. Can you try and describe what that's like if you can?
Kind of just like pulling the plug on something, just shut it off. And some things are harder to do it, that quick. But I mean, within a couple minutes, I could have my head cleared and gone just sitting in that black room.
Okay, we're going to talk about some of the other senses too. I want you to think about you being at a movie theater concession stand and they hand you a big tub of freshly popped buttery popcorn. Can you smell it in your mind?
No,
Okay. What about taste? Can you taste it in your mind?
I cannot. No, I can't do it. Any of the senses. There is one that I do, is pain. Like if I see something happen to somebody, I can feel the pain, and that's about as far as it goes. And it's not even very strong normally. You know, I guess the worse the pain, the more I feel it. But it's still very faint. But pain is the only one sense that I would really relate to the actual feeling when I don't have it. You know, when it's not there.
Okay, can you explain that? Are you, say, feeling it on their behalf? Or what's that sensation like?
Actually, like I'm feeling it, you know, like myself. Like if someone were to cut their finger while, you know, I was watching, or even on like movies or something, if they're really good, like graphically, and, you know, like, oh, I can feel that one, or someone crashing on a bike or something.
Okay. And this is something that I've been playing around with and theorizing. I genuinely believe that, at least in some people with aphantasia, that there is a threshold of experience that will elicit some kind of sensation. For example, if I asked you to feel that popcorn, maybe you couldn't, because that's more of like a subtle feeling. But pain is a very high sensation, high emotion, very powerful feeling. So my theory is that in some people, that there is a threshold where an experience will create some sort of sensation.
So that actually makes perfect sense. I never thought about it that way, because if it's something that I have personally experienced, like say getting stabbed, you know, I got stabbed in my knee one time, and if I see someone get stabbed, I will feel that more than say getting hit by a car. I would feel that sensation more. So yeah, that actually makes really good sense.
All right. There's 1 point for my theory.
I noticed a lot of things, like even emotions, when I've started to think about it, that I don't feel them as strongly, you know. And I used to think that, like, oh, why don't I care about that stuff? And then now I'm noticing, like, oh, I do feel that. I just don't feel as strongly as some other people who, you know, get emotional and just all fuzzy about stuff. Like I have that feeling there. It's just more like a thought, like, oh yeah, that's great, you know.
Yeah, because a lot of other people, when they say like they relive a memory, like they mean that in the sense that they're reliving it, like they're experiencing it all over again, because in their mind they can see it, they can hear it, they can smell it, they can feel it, and it's all there.
Yeah, definitely. That still continues to blow my mind, that people like, oh man, they're really there when they talk about like that, you know. And it's hard to feel that connection to something when you're not surrounded by it, you know.
And it's even interesting from my perspective, because like we said, I can visualize, but it's on a lower scale than a lot of people we've interviewed. And even those with hyperphantasia that we interviewed, they blow my mind with the level of detail and reliving that they can accomplish. Is something the likes of which I could never conjure in my mind.
I have a friend, in talking to him, he has hyperphantasia, and he didn't realize that was also a thing. He said he can literally like put scenarios in his head and have them play out and not even know what's going to happen, you know? Like it's not his set. It's like a whole thing, like a movie or something that he doesn't know how it's going to end. I'm like, wow, that is insane. I talk to other people that like this guy, he says when he focuses on something a lot, like for instance, a clown or something, you know, or going to the circus, and he'll see circus characters throughout the day visually, you know, like with his eyes open. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and we've talked to hyperphantasia people that are authors, and that seems to be it feels almost easier to write a book, because they just put the characters in the scenario there. The scenario works itself out, and then they just write it down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like when they say not sure how it ends yet, it's not because they haven't decided. Like they really don't know what's going to play out, you know, which is very interesting to me.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like they're just observing it instead of creating it, which is, that boggles my mind.
In this episode, we will be referring to the carnival picture. If you would like to view the carnival picture to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it at shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia section. If you are unable to view the carnival picture, it is a picture of a carnival at dusk with bright lights adorning carnival games and rides, including a large Ferris wheel, with many people walking around. All right. Do you have that carnival picture handy? Can you put yourself in that picture?
Like me looking at it and put myself in the picture, or just like imagine myself in the surroundings like I am a part of the picture? Because I don't know if I could do either, but my mind automatically went to wondering which one you were talking about.
Right.
So I guess the answer would be no. And I'm still wondering which one you want me to try and do.
I leave it open-ended to see what people will do. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about reading now. When you read a novel, how well can you think about what the characters and the surroundings might look like?
I can't even at all. I don't know. It's a tough one for me there. I've always had trouble reading and like novels.
I'm the same way because to me it's just words on a page, and I'd rather watch a movie.
I love to catch the movie. I've tried to read plenty of books, and it's rare to find one that'll keep my attention throughout the whole thing.
If somebody were to write a novel that appealed more to an aphantasia population, how do you think they could do that?
Oh man, maybe if it was digital and they had links to to the videos or to some pictures.
Links to pictures and things.
You've read comic books, right? That's a good one.
Do you really like comic books and graphic novels and things like that?
If I were to pick one to follow a story, it would definitely be something like that.
What about audiobooks? Do those do anything for you?
Not any more so than I just don't have to concentrate on absorbing the information. All I have to do is just hear it. I don't have to do any work to receive it, I guess. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. That's why I like them better. It's easier than reading.
Yeah. It's less work, and certain parts stick with me, and it's more of a deeper experience when it's coming from the outside,
What does the phrase, the book was better than the movie, mean to you?
I don't know, because to me, they're two totally different things. Like, it's like apples and oranges.
Right. Have you ever liked a book better than a movie? Because I don't think I ever have.
I don't think so. Maybe a movie that lined up with the book really well made me appreciate the book even more, because then it could help me get a more visual concept of it. But it doesn't go the other way around. Like, no, the book's probably not better because it took me 2 weeks to read that book, and I forgot that part. I had to go back and reread it when it came to the punchline there. And so, the movie, every time I'll take it.
Dad, I just thought of something, and I'm going to challenge you real fast because you just made a claim that I know is false. You said you've never had you said you've never had an experience where the book is better than the movie. And Brandon, for your information, my dad is a Dr. Seuss purist. That's what I call it.
Then I have to take it back myself, because I would say Dr. Seuss books are definitely better than those movies.
Yeah. You got me. The movies are terrible.
But we're talking about children's books as compared to novels too, right? Like,
yeah,
I've yet to see a Dr. Seuss novel.
Well, the other thing,
which would probably be better than any of those movies that I've seen.
The other thing about the Dr. Seuss books is they have pictures.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Good point, Cole. It's time for Aphantasia, the part of the show that lets you chime in and share your thoughts, insights, and experiences.
Hi, Shane. I'm 56 years old, and I discovered that I was aphantasic after curiosity got me one day, and I asked ChatGPT if there were people who could actually see images in their mind, and ChatGPT said yes. So naturally, my next question was, are there people who cannot see images in their mind? And ChatGPT said yes. These people are called aphantasic. Wow, that was me. It put me on a wild journey of discovery, which became painful, particularly since I feel so guilty about not remembering my children when they were young. So I stopped. But more recently, I started researching again, and I found your podcast, which I truly enjoy and find interesting. Now I've listened to most of the episodes and I get a range of different experiences. I get the range that people have. And I resonate a lot with many of your guests and even you, other than I have an inner monologue. But I have a question for your show. I'd like to know if aphantasic people can hallucinate. I've never had one, and I'm curious. Is that because I've never been in a situation that would cause me to hallucinate, or am I incapable of it? I'd love to hear the answer. And I enjoyed the show greatly, and I look forward to hearing it. Bye.
If you would like to participate and hear yourself featured on the podcast, go to shanesbraindomain.com and click on the Aphantasia section.
Let's talk about sleep and dreams. So first, what do you do to fall asleep?
I mean, lately I've been taking a lot of melatonin, but usually I just have to wait till I wind down. I mean, I only sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. If I sleep any more than that, I don't sleep. I just lay there in bed. It takes me a while to fall asleep, and then usually I'll get about 3 hours, wake up, fall asleep if I'm lucky, 2 or 3 more hours.
So what would you say makes that difficult?
When there's nothing, if I have something in the background, like some noise and stuff, it's a lot easier. But if there's nothing, it's like just in my head, and like, so it's weird to say in your head when there's nothing in there, but it's still, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe that there's a lot in there. So would you say your thoughts kind of keep you awake most of the time?
A lot of times there's just always something my mind's trying to figure out or work on or make sense of.
So earlier you said that it's fairly easy for you to get to that state of nothing. So in theory, why can't you just lay down, go to that nothing place and just fall asleep?
So that would be the hard part, is maintaining that nothing state until my brain is had enough to fall asleep, which that is the difference. I can't, like, holding that is like meditating for 20 minutes, absolutely nothing. That is tough to not have a thought in your head for that long.
Okay, so what does the background noise do? How does that help? Does that help distract your thoughts?
I think so. Like, I start focusing, like if I play some rain sound or maybe some frequency sleep music or something, it kind of doesn't bring in other thoughts and everything, just kind of goes with that.
Okay.
All right. So what about something like counting sheep? What does that mean to you? Does it work? How do you feel about that phrase in general?
Oh man, I'm jealous that people get to actually do that. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me.
The principle behind it is a monotonous counting activity that's supposed to lull your brain into sleep. Would anything like that work for you, even if it was just counting numbers?
I've tried just counting numbers too, and my brain just keeps counting and counting, and then it gets up to the higher numbers that actually take thought to put in, like 5,672. Now your brain is not relaxing anymore, So
now we're doing math, and that's just horrible.
Yeah. So the counting thing, it doesn't work for me either.
Do you dream?
I do. I rarely remember what I had as a dream. More than it was a dream within like 5 minutes after I wake up. But when I do, it's usually quite vivid and lucid as well.
Okay. So would you say in your dreams you are visualizing?
No, well, I mean, I wouldn't say visual. It feels more like I'm actually there experiencing it, like just like this conversation with us. The memory of it, this one would last, because I guess I feel like because I'm actually here. It's kind of the same, it's just like an experience that I can't remember, I guess, when it's over. But I feel like I'm actually there and a part of it. And being lucid, it makes it even more seem so, since I could just do whatever I want most of the time. And it's not always like that, but
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, are you, from what you can remember, are you actually seeing images?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It would be just this experience, just like us talking, it would be a lot like that. And I could even, be like, whoa, shit, this is a cool dream, let's go do this, or, depending on what I'm doing, like, let's go with this, or maybe not, let's not do that, or, hey, it's time to wake up, let's stop this, like So it's more like an experience than, a dream or a visualization.
It seems very vivid, very detailed. You said it was a lot like an experience. So can you experience any of those other senses in your mind when you're dreaming, like smell, touch, hearing, any of that?
Yeah, I can. When I am dreaming, I can. But then it's the same. Like if I remember smelling, this, or like I remember, for example, one time I came up with this sauce that I make, and I had a dream about it, and I remembered the smell and the taste of it, and I could not remember like outside of the dream. But as soon as I made it and tasted it, I was like, oh, yes, this is it right here. And I did it this exact same way that the recipe from my dream that I recalled. I don't know how I recalled that one. I think I wrote it down right away because I was just excited. But I used that recipe and it tasted exactly like I remember it tasting in my dream.
Wow. You have a very interesting dreamscape because it almost feels hyperphantasic.
In my dreams, I'm literally just maybe in a different universe or dimension or something and just crossing over while I'm sleeping, and then just coming back when I'm done.
Right. That's what was coming to my mind was it sounds to me like you're saying, I just go into a different universe and it's exactly like reality, almost exactly like real life is. And that's what I hear from some people with hyperphantasia. They say, I just go into my mind and it's just a separate universe and it's almost exactly like reality. And so you're having that hyperphantasic experience just in your dreams instead of in your mind while you're awake. That's what it sounds like.
But that is actually really interesting.
I can tell you first and foremost, my dreams are nothing like that.
Yeah, and neither are mine.
It's cool to see the different types of ways that people dream. I haven't really got into conversations with many people about that, actually.
So I have one other question about that. You mentioned that you made something or tasted something in your dream and then wanted to replicate that once you woke up. That is really cool. I wonder, has that happened to you in any other ways? Because I've heard like musicians say that where they composed a song or heard a song in their dream and then woke up and realized, oh, that's a new thing that I've never done before and went and made it for real. So you're an artist. Has anything ever happened to you that way in any other parts of your life where you dreamt something so vividly that then you woke up and created it in real life?
It didn't really cross over as much because it was more visual stuff. Like as far as for the recipe, I remembered the ingredients. I wrote them down as soon as I woke up, and I was able to recreate that. But any of the visual stuff, I've never been able to come to the same as what I saw in my dream. Like, oh, this was like this, and this needs to be here. Other than that, I'm kind of just scratching in the dark until it looks like what was in my dream, but it never really quite gets there. But the idea is still there, and I've created some pretty good works of art off of those ideas, but never recreations as the recipe.
Okay, that's pretty cool, though. All right, so you mentioned this in your email to me. Can you tell us about your first memory?
Yeah, so I was in Lincoln City is where I used to live. I'm probably about 5 years old. And I remember my mom showing me like the tides tables when it's safe to go down there and all of that. And like I said, this is nothing visual. I just remember, sharing this information with me and me knowing. And so I looked at a tides table and noticed that it was like in the middle of the night. That was the safe time, at this particular night. And I remember sneaking out, going down. I lived probably 3 or 4 blocks away from the beach. And I go down there and, I'm going to the ocean, playing around, and then I just wake up. I drown in there, so I'm choking, and I'm just like, get up, get my composure. And since I learned about aphantasia, I wasn't sure if that was, maybe the trauma that caused that, or if it was something that happened, if I was just born like that and always had it. But that is the first memory I have, and I don't have any visual memory ever in my life. So I'm just wondering if maybe the trauma had something to do with, like almost drowning, and then that was related to the aphantasia, or if maybe it was since I've been born,
So we've talked a lot about trauma and aphantasia, and the possible links between the two. And it's really interesting because we've talked to some people where it does seem like their aphantasia, at least in part, is a defense mechanism or something brought on by trauma. There are other people, though, we've talked to that are usually aphantasia that are given some form of visualization to cope with trauma. So it's really hard to say for sure what causes what.
Yeah, and then in that example, my first memory is a traumatic event. So it's even harder to nail that one down, you know?
Right.
Right. So would you say it's very like information based? Like I know the facts and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very much so.
In general, do you feel like your memories are pretty accurate?
For the most part, once I start really digging into them, like I said, it's just about recalling things. And I never know what's going to spark the recall. So I just keep going over different things. And then sometimes it'll just pop into my head, oh, this, or someone will say something and be like, oh, no, now I remember, you know. So I don't know what strikes that part, but I don't feel like I forget much, you know, like I can't think of anything I forget once I can recall it.
We're going to talk about mind storage. How would you describe how your mind stores information?
Just throwing it into a dark closet and closing the door.
So would you say that there's any like area or space or organization method at all within your mind?
Not at all whatsoever. I don't know. It's like I'm fumbling around in the dark and it becomes apparent when I find something and grab it what it is, but I don't ever know what it's going to be.
Okay. So if I said to you to like search your mind for particular information or memory, what would happen for you? What does that mean to you?
At first I go back to that blank spot that we were talking about earlier, where there's nothing there. And I kind of get stuck there for a minute until I can find something that sparks it, you know, like when was this or what memory am I trying to find? And then I can build from there once I get something. But initially, if anybody even asks me something, especially off guard, my mind goes to that blank space like a deer in the headlights almost.
Yeah, I have that too.
Interesting.
And it could be something that I know, like, you know, like my social security number, you know, or you catch me off guard. I'm like, what's a social security number? Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. All right. Is it easy for you to stay in the present moment?
Yeah, for the most part. I can find myself slipping away pretty easily, you know, sometimes depending on, you know, how interesting something is or whatever. But for the most part, I can come right back and stay right there.
Okay. Let's talk about your specifics. You've said that you've done a lot of different things for jobs. You've done a lot of different things in your art and hobbies and things. Does having aphantasia affect how you perform or how you do those things?
I would say no. I mean, I didn't even know I had it until a couple of years ago. I still have a lot of people like, man, I can't believe you do all that with your condition, I guess is what I kind of feel like they're telling me. But still, in fact, it's actually gotten better because I understand it better. Like, oh, what I'm doing is my creative process as far as, you know, like what someone who could see this stuff, they could see it in their head and they're doing the same thing I'm doing, like going through pictures and comparing and kind of figuring out what I want to create, you know?
Like we've said, the mind is still working. It's still creating ideas and coming up with concepts and all that. All that, the computer is on, right? It's all still doing it. Since the monitor's off, we deal in reality more than in our minds. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely. I always say it's the fun part for me is when I'm finished, I'm just as surprised or as excited as, you know, the person I'm showing the art to or the project or whatever, because I'm actually seeing it for the first time myself. You know, I'm not I don't have this. And I actually talked about my friend with hyperphantasia about that. Like, he has this set picture in his mind that he's always trying to achieve. Whereas me, I'm open to what's coming because there is nothing set, you know?
Right. You just have an idea. Oh, what would happen if I tried this? And then you try it and something beautiful happens. It's like, oh, wow, that's cool. And I think
you're like, oh, that's the one.
If you have a preset picture in your mind, maybe some of that magic isn't going to happen.
or you get disappointed when you don't achieve that preset picture, you know?
Right.
Like,
Okay. What about school? Did you do well in school or did you struggle?
I did well in school. I played a lot of sports, so there's some subjects that I wasn't so good at, like math, but I still scooted by.
So in retrospect, do you think aphantasia played any role at all in your school?
I probably could have excelled a lot more if there was better ways to learn geared towards aphantasia.
Okay. What do you think are some downsides to having aphantasia?
Just being able to re-experience something. I mean, I go back over like a lot of concert videos and stuff, and I look back and I'm like, kind of feel like I'm, you know, like, oh yeah, I remember that one, but I'm literally just remembering it. I'm not experiencing it at all, you know. But then there's people that can just think about it and they're there experiencing it, and it's just interesting, you know, to me to see that people can do that or know that people can do that.
Okay. What about upsides? What are some of the upsides that you feel to having aphantasia?
Just like trauma doesn't really stick with me. Like I said, emotions, like I can get over things really quick. Things don't weigh heavily on me. You know, I can get over those feelings and stuff a lot easier because, you know, I feel like some people when they're like angry about something, they're like there back in what they're angry about and feeling that. And I could see it in their eyes, you know, that you're not looking at me like, hey, come back here. And that is a definite advantage to do that and remain calm in a lot of situations when most people couldn't.
Okay, I like it. All right, so if you could wave a magic wand and get rid of aphantasia, would you do it?
I would wave a magic wand and bring more awareness to it so children could start at an early age learning about how their brain actually works, not being told how it does when it doesn't.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like that a lot. So you don't have any personal desire to be different or have a visualization ability?
No, not personally. I think I just knowing how my brain works and starting, if I would have known at a young age, you know, really how it works, I think just the way my brain works is amazing, and it never ceases to amaze me. But I'm like jumping in a jet, you know, and I've never even flown a kite, I guess. So if I would have started at a young age, you know, I feel like I would have known a lot better and been able to master a lot more than a lot of things the way my brain works, you know. I'm still playing a lot of catch up. The doubt is the hardest part. Even now, I'm 42 years old, and I remember getting just torn down by someone online because I mentioned that I did this art and I have aphantasia, and it's weird, you know, like, and someone was like, you don't even know, like, you can see stuff. And I'm like, are you seriously sitting here like telling me this? Like, I know what it is. And it's just the doubt as far as, you know, like telling somebody just because you can do this doesn't mean someone else can, you know. That's the tough part.
Yeah. And it still boggles my mind that after 40 something episodes of this, and we have illustrated time and time again that this is a thing, you know, like we've interviewed countless people with it, and we've shown all sorts of scientific studies and fMRI exams and things that can point to the existence of this phenomenon, and people are still saying, nah, it's not a thing.
Yeah, it's strange.
All right, Brandon. Well, that is pretty much it. Is there anything else you would like to say or talk about before we sign off?
No, just I really appreciate being able to come on here and talk with you guys about it. And I love what you guys are doing. And I just appreciate everything you guys are doing. And thanks for having me on the show.
All right. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. You had a lot of really good insights, and I like the way you said some of those things in a different way than I've ever heard before. So I appreciate you and your time. And
yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. You guys have a good one.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.